Story 2. Samuel and a weight of guilt. Sometimes horror isn't a shadow, it's a presence that becomes a child's friend. In Las Vegas, Zala noticed her 5-year-old daughter, Ilsa, stop playing with dolls. She started playing with Samuel. Isla assumed it was the name of a new classmate until Ilsa started asking, "Mom, does it hurt a lot when a cabinet crushes your head?" The chill that mother felt is impossible to explain. At the daycare, the teachers saw Ilsa talking to thin air. But one day, the violence broke out. A little boy snatched a wooden block from Ilsa. She, with a calm that didn't belong to a child, told him, "Samuel says you shouldn't do that. He says you're going to be sorry." Minutes later, in front of 3 teachers, the boy was launched across the room as if an invisible force had slammed a sledgehammer into his chest. Isla confronted her daughter that night. Ilsa, crying, confessed the truth. Samuel was a boy who lived at the daycare. He was dirty, his face was flat, and his head always ached. Samuel told her that many years ago, a poorly secured shelf fell on him while he was napping. No one heard him. The most terrifying part? When Isla investigated, she found that the daycare had been remodeled over an old facility that closed due to administrative negligence in the 90s. Samuel never left. Samuel is still waiting for someone to lift the weight he still feels pressing against his skull. Story 3. Grandma Matilda. To wrap up, let's talk about the story that was hardest for me to process. Manolito was a normal boy, but his grandmother Matilda was an enigma. Despite being over 80 years old, according to her ID, Matilda walked with the agility of a woman in her 40s. Her skin was smooth, but her eyes were ancient wells. Manolito started bringing gifts to the daycare. They were bracelets woven with red thread and what looked like small fragments of bone or baby teeth. He gave them to his 2 best friends, Richie and Alex. "It's so we can be together forever," the boy said, mimicking his grandmother's raspy voice. 3 days later, Richie didn't wake up. Sudden infant death syndrome, the doctor said. A week later, Alex fell into a fever that made him delirious, screaming that a young woman was sucking him dry in his dreams. The daycare director, sensing something dark, checked the security cameras after hours. What she saw left her paralyzed. Matilda would arrive at the daycare gates at midnight. She would sit on the curb and begin reciting prayers in a forgotten tongue, holding photos of her grandson's friends. When the police went to her registered address, they found an empty house. In the center of the living room was an altar with the deceased children as bracelets and a photo of Matilda. But in that photo dated 1950, she looked exactly as she did now. Matilda wasn't a loving grandmother. She was a parasite using the pure energy of children to cheat death. Where is she now? Perhaps at your local daycare, handing a red bracelet to a lonely child. The walls of daycares hear more than we imagine. If you have a similar story or work in a place where the toys move on their own, leave it in the comments. And remember, the next time you pass an empty daycare at night and hear a laugh, don't stop. It might be Samuel looking for someone to play with. This has been Let's Talk English. Subscribe if you dare to keep hearing the truth. Sweet dreams. If you can.